how do we change the participation in tennis?
Yeah.
I think one of the big things that when I've gone abroad and seen when I've been playing tournaments is sometimes in other countries, say Italy, Spain, there's a completely different culture around tennis. In the UK, tennis is big for maybe 3 weeks a year, Queen's, Eastbourne, Wimbledon, and then it all dies down again. And I think that sort of love for the game in this country can be definitely developed over time through having more courts, around the UK. I definitely think it's tougher being a country where there isn't great weather. But even small things, when I was younger, they used to have a lot of kids' days around tournaments. When I go abroad and I play challenges even, there's always a kids' day. There's always loads of kids around the venue, trying to, you're inspired by players, I think, at a younger age. So I think if we can get more kids involved in events leading up to tournaments, more kids ball boying, I think all those things definitely add to a more likelihood of a lot more kids wanting to be tennis players and growing up that way.
Very good. You don't have to be top 10 in the world to give a good answer. You're already thinking in those terms. And I think when you were younger, were you a member of a club? Because I think that's another one. You touched on Spain, which obviously I see living over here for 12 years. We had Facu, Cameron Norrie's coach, on the show. He talked about that culture in Argentina, Italy, Germany. I'm sure you played German league tennis at some point. Yeah. But the story of you going down with your mum, who's a tennis coach, and jumping on the wall and playing, when people are members of clubs and it's in the culture to spend the weekend at the tennis club. Like I remember playing cricket more than I played tennis at the tennis club. However, it was still tennis racket ball. It was on the court, hand-eye coordination. It was being around tennis. Much easier then to get pulled in to maybe play doubles with some of the older players. Is that an experience you had when you were younger? Or was yours a little bit more through your family?
I think I'd say mine was a bit more through my family. Obviously, my parents used to maybe take me to county week every now and again. I've got photos on my phone of when I was there, hitting with the older guys when I was 4 or 5, 6. I suppose my first coach, Justin Shering, he worked at WTA, which is St George's College, and he'd run a sort of academy there. And I'd say from age 9 to 11, I used to go in squads and be involved. My older brother was there, and there was a lot of older players. So I was always looking up to people. I was always around older people, and I always sort of wanted to prove that I was an okay player as well. And I think that's how I was introduced to it. I was always around a lot of older people who were very intrigued by the game also. So I suppose my love for tennis grew from there, really.
Because you mentioned earlier that you didn't start taking it that seriously till 14, 15. But I've known of Jack Draper since you were 11, 12. Now, I know your dad was the CEO of the LTA at that time, so maybe that's a little bit a part of it. But your results also back that up in its own right. So I don't want the listeners to think that Ryan Peniston, who's currently in the quarterfinals at Queen's Club, he genuinely wasn't doing that well at 14, 15. But you, at age 11 or 12, were already a very good player. How much international exposure did you get at those young ages?
I suppose I went on a few trips when I was younger. It was weird, my sort of tennis journey. I wasn't sort of involved in a training complex where I trained all the time. I had lessons with my coach maybe twice a week. I was playing competitively a lot. I didn't do a lot of training. I always was competing on the weekend or something like that. So I'd go to school, I'd maybe have a lesson here or there, but then I'd be competing tennis on the Saturday most days, and then on the Sunday I'd be playing Sunday league football. So that's what I'm saying. I wasn't all in with the tennis. I had other things that I was doing. And that's where at 14, 15 started to realize, wow, I'm getting loads of injuries from playing football. I'm hurting my ankle, then I'm out for tennis for weeks. So I suppose from there I was more right, I'm all in with the tennis. But before that, compared to a lot of people, yeah, maybe it's more serious, but I'd say it was more like I was competing a lot. I wasn't taking it really seriously in terms of, right, I'm doing Monday to Friday training, you know.
And was that something that those around you advised, or was that led by what you felt?
It was, yeah, it was probably led by my parents, and my coach. My coach was really into Justin Cherry. He's an incredibly competitive guy. So I think it was more the mindset that if I go and compete, then I'm going to learn how to win and lose, and learn the skills, and get thrown in against older players as well, where I'd get more experience and learn how to play matches as opposed to doing loads of training.
And how big of an influence was Justin on you and your tennis?
Yeah, like massive. He was my coach from 16 till 6 until 15. Justin, it's weird. My tennis journey, I suppose, has been in stages, but definitely at that stage, he developed my love for the game massively. Developed definitely a competitor in me. I remember when I used to go and see him maybe on a Wednesday after school, and I think I'm going to play a 2-hour session with him. But I get there and he's got the sponge ball tennis nets up, and he said, right, we're going to play best of 5 sponge ball. You know, and little stuff like that. It's like, well, maybe I'm not hitting tennis balls, but I'm learning the skills. I'm using my hands. And at the end of the day, I'm being incredibly competitive because he's on that sort of wavelength with me. He's a student of the game. He loves tennis, and so we definitely had a massive bond through that.
And what about the influence of your family?
Yeah, I suppose obviously my mum's the tennis side of things comes from my mum's brother. So my mum was a great tennis player when she was younger and was always involved in the tennis side of the game. My dad obviously had a role at the LTA, so I was around tennis a lot. And I would say one of the most fortunate things for me was that my mum, my dad, and my brother can play tennis. So whenever I wanted to go and maybe have a little hit or something, I could just ask one of them, and we'd go and play. I think I was really thankful looking back at that, for that.
It can't be easy for an older brother who's a good tennis player to get his arse whooped by his younger brother. When was the first time you beat him? How old were you, and how did he handle it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one really, because we used to play lots of games, you know, not just tennis. We used to play ping pong, all that sort of stuff, and that's another thing which developed that competitiveness in me. I think having an older brother helps that. I've actually only played him once, and it was in my first ITF junior event, and we were playing each other in the second round. And
Nottingham?
No, it was actually in Queenswood, and I was thinking it was on the outdoor clay. I think I was about 15 at the time, and he was 18, and he beat Ryan Gaskin first round, who I think he used to coach or something.
Yeah, that's right.
The next day we were coming in. I was thinking we were going to play on the slow green clay. We ended up going to Gosling indoors, and all of a sudden he was towering over me, throwing down big serves, and he actually beat me that day 4-3. So he's always going to have that over me, the fact that we've played once and he's beat me once.
And I remember watching you guys play doubles somewhere, and you were young. You were really young, you know. But it always struck me that you had a really strong relationship. It looked like it was a healthy sibling relationship.
Yeah, we always got on extremely well. Me and my brother, we've always had a very close relationship. I think I'm not sure if that's too common or whatever, but I definitely think we've grown up with really good values. You know, we like the same things. We both have a bond through tennis. And yeah, he's actually just got back from university, so it's good to see him again. But we've always been really close, my brother, for sure.
And the other thing that, and you won't know this, but I say this again to lots of players. Tennis coaches know all the younger players. Like, I remember watching you and Anton Matusevic play maybe quarterfinals in the team tennis, not against each other, but you know, you kind of follow the careers, and I always when I first saw you, because you hear people talking about you, and I would go and watch, I need to go and watch Jack. The one thing that stood out for me, which stands out for me in most players that end up being top 100 player in the world, was the belief that you seem to have. From the outside, you didn't look phased. You looked like, and even when I've played and I've coached against you, with Evan Hoyt playing you, and seeing you then play Junior Wimbledon, seeing you play Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon, it seems to have been something that you and a lot of the great tennis players we've seen over the years have internally. Is that something you feel you've always had? And I guess the second part to that question, Jack, is at what age did you believe in your heart of hearts, I'm going to have a tennis career?
I would say competing a lot at a young age definitely helped the belief that whenever I stepped on a match court, that I was able to potentially win the match. I think I was always playing against older players as well, which you're sort of thrown into that, and you have to have the mindset, well, I'm going to go toe to toe with you, and I'm going to do that without fear. I suppose in terms of the belief of when I really thought I could be a player was, I definitely thought I could be a great tennis player when I was 16. I made the final of Junior Wimbledon, or obviously I was always a good junior, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good senior player as well. And so I always thought that I had the ability to be a good tennis player, but I think when you become pro, you all of a sudden realise the complexity and the toughness of the sport. And I think it's taken me a while to realise that and learn that these are the things I need to do to be a top player. And so I'd only say I truly believe that I could get to the top of the game when I was probably around 18, which sounds mad, but it's just the way my journey's gone, really.
I'm wondering which way to take. There's two things I want to ask you. If I ask you the one of them, it might take me away from the other one. So yeah. The first one that I want to ask you is, does belief add pressure? Because I guess what comes with belief is a higher expectation. And what comes with a higher expectation comes pressure.
I think when I think about pressure, sometimes I think that I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, playing tennis, doing something I love, going abroad, meeting all kinds of people who have helped massively on my journey and are very, very close friends. I sometimes think that, pressure is definitely a word that a lot of tennis players struggle with. And I suppose that belief side of things, I guess I've always just believed that I could be a very good player one day, and I've never tried to think about any pressures or whatever that goes with that. I've just tried to think, right, I just need to stay on this path. If I'm doing good things day in, day out, then hopefully I can be a good player one day. And I think if you do things with more freedom, I think you end up with better results.
And on that mindset, is that something that you've worked on externally with sports psychologists and gone that route, or is that something that you have naturally got from your environment over the years?
I think, it's definitely not. I've had to learn experiences. I've been lucky to have, I'd say, 3 predominant coaches so far: Justin Sharing, Ryan Jones, and James Trottman, who have all given me very good values as a player. And they're constantly trying to improve me as a person as well. And I think that comes from them mainly as well, giving me that message on a daily basis that, this is your journey. You're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have all these kind of emotions, which is totally normal. But you just got to keep on doing what you're doing. And if you're putting in the right work, you will get to where you want to get to.
Very good. The second bit I was going to ask you, you said the complexity and toughness, I think, were the words you used. So that kind of that move from being a junior, staying in the Hyatt Hotel in New York City, playing US Open, spending time in the changing rooms with these top players, and all of a sudden you're on the back court in Slovenia, staying in some Airbnb. What are the real kind of tough toughness and complexities that you talk about that often shock people as they make that transition?
I think in juniors you're going to nice events. You're at a boys and girls tournament every week, so you're around friends, people you've grown up playing tennis with. Everything's looked after for you, and then all of a sudden you go out of the juniors and you're thrown in the futures, and you have to go to some places which have really tough conditions, environments. You're usually on your own, and it's just a really tough reality you have to face, especially being a young person. I think maybe in this country we don't do a good enough job of almost letting you know about that, how tough that step
Yeah.
is. I think I was extremely lucky that when I was 15, I started getting coached by Ryan Jones, who was the ex-coach of Corich and Edmund. So he'd sort of seen how tough it was in the pro circuit, and he definitely tried to install how tough it would be in my own head so that I would be ready to make the transition when it came. But it doesn't make it any easier, and I think the level of tennis is so high now as well. Maybe in the juniors you get some matches which are easier than others, whereas when you're going and playing the futures and the challengers, the level of tennis is better, the conditions are tougher, and just what you have to go through on a daily basis in order to win and play good matches is a lot harder as well.